We break down four fundamentally different types of negotiations. Now you're gonna be like 10,000 of these in your lifetime, but they kind of fall into four buckets. On the most transactional end of the spectrum, you bargain. Most people call bargaining hard bargaining or positional bargaining. When you get a little more complexity, the market's a little bit smaller, dependency is a little bit more important, now you're trading, right? I'm uncovering a bunch of different options here. But then when we get a little bit more collaborative, and most importantly, we trust each other a little bit more, the relationship is now in a place where it's professional, if not trusting. Now we can be in a creating type dynamic. Now we have a lot more complexity. I'm much more open to challenging the status quo and challenging and breaking some of my perceived walkaway points as well. I'm open to doing more exceptional deal design instead of standardized deal design because we trust each other. We have enough options for it, and the lens is now a lot wider because we might be dealing in long-term agreements. You have creating next. And then on the most potentially collaborative, we have partnering, right? Partnering negotiations are the most complex.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Mark Mirra, who is the co-founder and CEO of Line Negotiation. Mark, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, Joao, nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. I think I told you last time around that I am very passionate about the entire negotiation communication side of the world and our interactions. So tell everyone a little bit more about Aligned, what you guys are all about, who you help, and any context you want to share about the company.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously happy to be here. Been in the negotiation space for a while now. And what Align seeks to do is make negotiation really approachable and easy to understand for everybody everywhere, because everybody needs to learn the skills of being clear, assertive, and nice, at least twice being nice, because we feel that's a great recipe for negotiation success. So that's kind of our mission in the world, make negotiation really easy for everybody to do and not feel like a necessary evil.
Awesome. And I think there's always such a negative connotation with the word negotiation or sales or whatever that might be. But before we dive into that, which I'm sure you have much to say, tell everyone a little bit more. Are you working with specific individuals? Or are you working with companies?
Yeah.
Any context around there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been around for 3 years now, and we predominantly work with a lot of the Fortune 500. We're the preferred partner for like Berkshire Hathaway. As an example, we work with sports teams, retailers, consumer goods companies all across the board. Most of our clients are over $1 billion in revenue and size. Many are over 10 to 50 bill, which is amazing. But we work with plenty of startups as well. We are predominantly B2B in our services. We do coaching and training workshops, either video series, 1-day or 2-day engagements, as well as multiple coaching sessions too, kind of embedding these different practices through our core curriculum. But we also support individual negotiators as well. So stay tuned. Our video series is available for all consumers, and we're going to be starting to run some 1-day engagements and workshops on negotiation skills that anybody can sign up for. We're kicking those off in the next quarter.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And let's dive straight into it. I think it's a good point for us to start, which is there's often such a negative connotation with sales, with negotiation, with the conversations. I think sometimes people hear those words and they're like, they tense up already, like their butt cheeks get clenched and they're like, oh, here you go. Right. So why do you think people often have that usual connotation with those words or with these types of interactions? And why should they not?
Okay, love that question. So first, as humans, we are generally speaking pack animals. We like to be accepted by the pack, right? That's what has allowed us to create civilizations and societies and communities. We're pack animals. Conflict is a threat to the pack.
Yep.
So most people, not all people, obviously, but most people are conflict averse. I don't want to ruffle too many feathers. I don't want to damage the relationship. And a negotiation can't exist if there isn't any level of inherent conflict. So conflict doesn't need to be a bad thing, but we perceive it as a bad thing because if conflict exists and we don't feel like we can resolve that conflict, well, now we have to abandon ship or get ousted or be lonely. So we have this kind of innate fear of conflict to a degree. And when threat presents itself, there are 4 different fundamental reactions humans have. Fight or flight is the most common two that people remember, but there's also freeze, kind of a deer in headlights. What do I do here? And there's also fawn. I want to be the peacekeeper. I want to appease you. I want to capitulate, accommodate, all that sort of stuff. So we have all these different kind of reactions to conflict and reactions to threat, which then shapes our perception of what negotiation is. Most people think that negotiation is this kind of slam your fist on the table, hard-nosed type of deal making.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, like, I would kind of challenge your audience, close your eyes for a second. Think about to yourself for 30 seconds, what does a negotiator look like? How do they act? How do they function? What do they behave like? You're going to get images of people you've read in the news. You're going to get images of movies and TV shows, and they are largely depicting just a bunch of people in suits and boardrooms.
Yeah.
So now I have this kind of tolerance or intolerance for conflict, coupled with an image that might not look anything like me. So I don't think I can negotiate. It's a necessary evil. A lot of people perceive it as slowing down the process. And we couldn't disagree more with any of those. But they're natural biases people have cognitively based on kind of what's going on around you. So in our opinion, everyone's a negotiator. I don't care if you're a kindergartner and a parent trying to resolve how to share your toys properly. I don't care if you're building a community event, or you're going on vacation with a bunch of different couples, or you're redoing supplier agreements and negotiating terms in those ways. Every single person's a negotiator, and every single person can benefit from being clear, assertive, and nice until you don't have to be nice anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's so awesome that you bring that up, because in my perspective, from many interactions I've had over 200 conversations in these calls now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But people often don't think as normal day-to-day interactions as negotiations, but as you said, they are. It's that kindergarten speaking with their parents of, I don't want to share my toys, or hey, you're gonna have to share your toys, or it's, hey, I want to have ice cream right now, and you can't have ice cream, and they're just very persistent. There's always a balance between that, or choosing where we're gonna go out, choosing where we're gonna go on vacation. Everything is a negotiation, but people aren't aware of it. They don't have the perspective, so it doesn't allow them to see other situations or minor situations as negotiations themselves as well, which is kind of interesting to me. But as you said, everything is. And I'm wondering, in your perspective, do you think having that unawareness, I guess we can call that some sort of ignorance, a minor ignorance of those situations as well, do you think that has an effect on how business negotiations happen as well? Or do you think that those are two completely uncorrelated things?
I think they're directly correlated because, I mean, humans negotiate business contracts as well as humans, deal with their kids,
Yeah.
right? Or their peers or their friends or their family members. How you negotiate at home will likely be, but not always be, how you negotiate in the office. Now you have some personal, professional personas you may adopt or code switching that may happen, which is fine. But generally speaking, what you see is what you emulate from a negotiation standpoint, which let's break down what negotiation is. It's communication style, it's setting of clear expectations, it's uncovering interests, it's discussing where you're in conflict and where you're complementary, it's problem solving, it's critical thinking. These are all just kind of life skills that people need. And the overarching theme of all those life skills kind of rolls up into negotiation as a catch-all term. So if you think about, well, let's break down what negotiation is real quick, and then I'll talk about, why people bargain so much.
Go ahead.
So we break down 4 fundamentally different types of negotiations. Now you're gonna be like 10,000 of these in your lifetime, but they kind of fall into 4 buckets.
Yeah.
On the most transactional end of the spectrum, you bargain. Most people call bargaining hard bargaining or positional bargaining. So I'm gonna get to that in a second.
Sure.
When you get a little more complexity, the market's a little bit smaller, dependency is a little bit more important. Now you're trading, right? And I'm uncovering a bunch of different options here. The pool of value is still largely finite. We're still typically dealing with quantitative terms like price and volume and delivery time, easy to assess. And we'll trade those back and forth and try to find the right combination that works for the both of us. And yeah, I still want to kind of tilt value in my favor in a trading scenario. But then when we get a little bit more collaborative, and most importantly, we trust each other a little bit more, the relationship is now in a place where it's professional, if not trusting. Now we can be in a creating type dynamic. Now we have a lot more complexity. I'm much more open to challenging the status quo and challenging and breaking some of my perceived walkaway points as well. I'm open to doing more exceptional deal design instead of standardized deal design because we trust each other. We have enough options for it. And the lens is now a lot wider because we might be dealing in long-term agreements. So you have creating next. And then on the most potentially collaborative, but I'll say why potentially in a second, we have partnering, right? Partnering negotiations are the most complex, typically the longest term, These are kind of mergers of similarly sized organizations. This is like the NBA and the Players Association. These are partnering deals. Their success as a league is dependent on the players and the governing body and the presidents,
Yeah.
right? It's an incredibly important relationship. But sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes partnering negotiations are actually a little bit less collaborative than creating negotiations because you have so many different personalities, so many different agendas, both obvious and hidden. They're typically very multi-party. So again, look at the NBA, look at the Players Association. There were very much times where it was not collaborative, even though it is a partnering agreement at the end of the day. So 4 different types of negotiation: bargaining, trading, creating, and partnering. Kind of get a feel for what they are. Most people, we go back to necessary evil, they don't like to negotiate. They perceive it in really negative ways because they typically only see bargaining negotiations. Bargaining negotiations are the closest to home. Our lives aren't that complex. We're typically negotiating over 1 to 3 things. It could be a car. It could be who's taking the dog out in the morning. It could be, purchasing furniture, whatever it is. These are bargaining deals. Bargaining deals are also the default for a lot of people because they're quantitative, they're easy to understand, and they're not that complex. So bargaining is often perceived as hard bargaining or positional bargaining because it doesn't matter what our interests are. We're just beating ourselves up over positions, which in some circumstances is perfectly fine. It doesn't really need to know what my interests are when I'm buying a car. Just give me the best possible price and the best possible tech package.
Of course.
But when people rush to bargaining, they're only going to bat on their positions. But when you get into trading, you can evolve to the interests. The interests are much deeper below the surface, and that requires critical thinking and that requires empathy. And most people fundamentally don't draw upon those skills a lot. But the only way to get to interests is if you have a relationship where there's enough trust and you're open to sharing information and you're open to thinking about the other party's needs and desires while also fostering an environment where they're thinking about your needs and desires. And you can transition from a bargaining to a trading scenario, but again, only if you get to the interests. So it's very easy to do positional bargaining because again, it's obvious, it's transparent, it's right in front of you.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's like the dynamic in which where there's that hard bargaining happening. Both parties are always trying to get the best end of the deal, and it's like, hey, if they're getting the better side of it, I'm not gonna allow that to happen, so they're gonna do it, and then it's that constant butting heads and in the inability to come to a decision or a mutual agreement. And then at the end of the day, there's either one or the other who, more often than not, is not going to be as happy as they could with the end result. But as soon as you transition to the trading side of things, like, hey, here's a common, instead of a conflict of interest, I now understand why you have this purpose. I understand the intention behind it. So I can mutually align the negotiation or the conversation that we're having to fulfill that. And you can also do the same for me, which kind of creates, as I said, less of a conflict of interest and more of a mutual sense, or walking alongside the same road. Or like holding hands in that deal as opposed to opposite end of the table, sitting on the same side of the table. Does that sound about right? Or
Yeah, no, I'll give you like a tangible example here, right? Let's say we're negotiating. This is the first time we're negotiating with each other, so we have no relationship, or we've worked with each other, but like I don't really like working with you. I kind of have to. So like you're kind of our preferred supplier, so I need to work with you. So it's maybe a little bit more transactional and or combative, right? So we're bargaining here. If I say our payment terms are net 90, so we're not going to pay you for 90 days, and this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what we need, and you take that as a position, you're just going to try to, as a seller, pull me down to 30, and as a buyer, I'm going to keep you at 90, right? Because those are our positions, and that's where we're going to keep you. But if we trusted each other a little bit more, right? If we've done some more work with each other, if the terms were a little bit wider or the scope was a little bit wider, and I say, hey, our payment terms are net 90, you may ask me, well, talk me through your payment terms. How valuable is the net 90 for you? Is it a standard for you? Is there a specific constraint you have on capital, or are you trying to reinvest in other areas? Talk me through the net 90. And I trust you enough to say, hey, that's our standard corporate policy, but we made some exceptions in the past if the value is there. All of a sudden, I'm sharing with you that we have made an exception in the past. Now, as a negotiator, you can say, okay, cool. Well, payment terms super valuable for me. So I want to make sure we have good cash flow. We're a sales business. We're reinvesting in technology, whatever the answer is. So what if we did this? What if we gave you a little bit more value in this area of the deal, more so than I can provide you on face value? I can maybe give you an extra, maybe 5% here, but you got to get me down from the 90. You got to get me down to the 30.
Interesting.
So
But
I'm open to I'm open to breaking my policy on discount structure. If you're open to breaking your policy on payment terms. And now what we've done is, since payment terms is way more valuable for me than, let's say, a 5% discount, a 5% discount for them at scale may be way more valuable than an extra 60 days in payment terms, because they have good capital and they have good cash flow already. So now what we've done is we've created way more value for ourselves because we've trusted each other enough to share some information and have some unconventional deal design. Not everyone has those conversations because people perceive negotiation as a necessary evil where trust doesn't exist. But if trust did exist, you can get to the interests.
It's great. It's great that you shared that analogy. Thank you for that. It's the trust is the foundation that allows the conversations to happen, that allows the value to shine through. But if the trust isn't there, then nothing else comes from it, and it's just the butting heads, which is like the youthful.
Now you can do, and when people talk about negotiation, I was like, kind of keep your cards close. And we tell people, no, play your cards. You can be clear with your expectations. And if someone does not meet your expectations, you can also be clear to let them know, I'm not going to do this because it does not meet my expectations. But again, people are really uncomfortable having conflict, and they have a difficult time either perceiving conflict as constructive and humans, this is like the coldest take you're going to hear from me and Aligned, is humans are just, can I curse on this? Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yes, you can.
They are shit negotiators, not communicators rather. We're not very good communicators whatsoever. So we have a hard time expressing our intent in a way that matches someone's interpretation. And I'll give you another example of this. Like, let's say I'm a really nervous person, right? I got a lot of anxiety in social situations. And in order to break the tension, I tell a joke.
Okay.
Someone may perceive that joke, and I'm sure all of your listeners are being like, oh, I was that person once, or this person does that all the time. Well, think to yourself, why are they telling that joke? It could be because they're an ass. Could be. It could be because they're painfully nervous or uncomfortable, and they feel the need to break a tension and inject some levity. So if I'm on the interpretation side of that, I don't know why you told that joke. It may be a bad joke or a crass joke or ill-timed or whatever. I may think, you're just joking around, this is not serious to you, or man, that sounds like a bad person, or anything in between. But if that person said, look, man, I'm like really uncomfortable in social situations, so like every now and then I kind of tell a joke. So just like if I do that, like I'm just feeling a little uncomfortable. If I told someone that on the front end and then that happened, they know I'm uncomfortable. Right? So if I can clearly communicate my intent in a way that someone can clearly interpret it the right way, the way I intend it to, if we can be better communicators, we can be better negotiators, period, end of story.
Awesome. Yeah, just having that full transparency of like, here's what's going now, here's why it's happening, here's why it's important, and here's how we can help both of us throughout the process or whatever it might be. That's so awesome. Really, really great analogy there. And I wanted to ask you a specific question, which I am very, very curious to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah.
Now with social media and so much content that exists and tips for this and advice for that and do this and do that. Many good things, many good pieces of advice, but also many terrible ones. I would love to hear from you. What do you think is a common tip that you hear that maybe even some larger names, obviously don't have to name any names, but some larger people say, hey, here's a tip that maybe you should do. Here's something how you should guide a negotiation that you actually don't agree with.
So there's a lot out there that I do agree with, but I don't agree with in certain settings, or I don't agree with as a catch-all, one-size-fits-all. So there's a lot of negotiation tips out there, and I would say most of it is accurate for some level of negotiation. But it's very easy for a lot of these organizations or individuals to say a provocative statement, and I'll give you one in a second, that you will get value out of in some situations, but it's going to hold you back significantly in other situations. So there's one concept that people talk about all the time is, open extreme, or say you need a lot more than what you actually need. Open aggressive, reset expectations. I kind of use all this combination of stuff. You need $100, say you need $150, and work yourself there. And in bargaining scenarios, it works incredibly well. You're anchoring high or low, and you're moving in ever decreasing amounts to extract a finite amount of value from a finite pool of value in a negotiation. Very sensible. And we're all familiar with this concept too. We all have friends that show up late to the party. So we tell them the party's at 7. We tell them to show up at 6:30 because we know they're going to be 30 to 45 minutes late anyway. So we've opened aggressively there. So it's something that we do. It's something we're familiar with. And in personal negotiations, you are going to get some quick wins that way. But let's take that exact same concept and translate it to a creating negotiation. A typical maybe like Nestle and Walmart type situation where you have lots of different terms. They typically do 3-year LTAs in certain situations. They're doing sets and forecasting and product launches over multiple years. And now all of a sudden I open up aggressively here. And I say, if I'm Walmart, I need a 25% or a 35% cost of goods decrease. Nestle, go figure it out. They can't do that. It doesn't work like that. And all it's going to do is sour the relationship and damage the trust where I'm not going to share my interests anymore. So opening aggressively is a really sensible topic in bargaining negotiations with 1 to 3 different terms in saturated markets where you can sub people out, burn and turn all the time. It is a terrible idea. If you do it everywhere, or even in some pockets, the deeper you get into the relationship and the wider the scope ends up being, it ends up damaging more trust and it ends up building value for yourself.
How do you think that, like, for example, how do you think that career negotiation should go, that creating negotiation should go when there might be a party who is like very aggressive, they do anchor high or low, whatever it might be, but it's in a situation where, as you said, there are many terms of service, there are many things that are at play, but you still might oftentimes get that one person or that one whatever party, the main individual who's leading the negotiations, that is just a bit of a jerk. So how do you
totally
there?
So a couple different ways you can combat someone being hyper aggressive with you in a situation where it is a long-term agreement, lots of different complexity. So one, you can just reset the expectations really quickly and sometimes even call it out and be like, look, I get it. You're trying to get a lot of value here. We're just not even going to entertain anything close to that. So you need to reset your expectations very quickly. And then I can work with you on the margins in other places. So I can just get right ahead of it and not let that idea fester, not let that anchor kind of sink deeper and deeper and deeper into the ground. I address it immediately. Look, that's completely off the table. You know it's off the table. I know it's off the table. Let's work on focusing on some other areas of the deal. I'll be very clear with that. That's one strategy you can take. Another strategy you can take is, you know what? Let me look into that. Let me see how I can make that work for us. And in the area that they were hyper aggressive in, I'm going to be equally, if not more aggressive in 1 to 2 other areas that do allow me to do that. So if you want to say, hey, you got to give me a 25% discount, I may say, you know what, let me look into that. And I would put my volume commit, my contract, my payment terms so egregiously in my direction to actually balance it out for us. Like, yeah, well, okay, well, you asked for a 25% discount. I'm going to figure out how it works for me. And this is how it works for me profitably. So you get 2 choices. You could either agree to a deal that I know is great for me, or I get you off of that 25% position because you're going to say no to my deal, which means I'm going to say, look, I gave you a solution to this. Like,
but there are some
flexions to this. Yeah. Like I'm giving you the 25, but this is how the 25 works for my business. I'm not like a bank here.
Yeah.
So I gave them an option that works, or I reject it right off the table with clarity, assertiveness, and professionalism. Or kind of any combination of those will work really well. But when people use those opening aggressive tactics, they're using it because they want to anchor you and reset your expectations in a direction. Sometimes they'll do it in a really intimidating and bullying way too, because it works sometimes for them, or that's what they've seen on movies, TV, or for former mentors. So also be aware of that. Some people, that's just the play that they have in their toolkit. And when you deflect or defend or reassert yourself, they may actually look at you in a more respectful way because they're going to say, oh, okay, I can play ball with this person. Okay, all right, let's talk terms now. Let's really get down to business. So you might also kind of flip the script around too, if you do it with clarity, assertiveness, and professionalism.
Yeah, awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to go to I guess the negotiation or the business side of things of guys, when you're looking at growth, when you're looking at the goals of the company, when you're looking at the challenges, obviously you have a very great long background that allowed you to build a company and like really get it going really fast. Obviously many great relationships and the trust that you were saying that you have with a lot of different companies that allowed you guys to reach where you are today. What do you think are I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming a lot of the relationships start with you guys from that trust side of things, a lot of word of mouth, a lot of referrals from your past experiences, and that allows you to obviously grow the company to very fast in a period of 3 years, I think you said, in a period of 3 years. So is that correct of me to assume? And in the other side of things, when you're looking at growth of the company, what are some challenges that come along with possibly not only, but possibly having that reliance on, hey, here's a lot of relationship builds that I've done in the past. Here's a lot of word of mouth. Here's everything that comes from that side of my experience. But there are many things that I'm not sure are untouched or need. So I'd love to hear from your end, how you guys approach acquiring new business and having those conversations, starting those relationships as well to keep growing aligned as much as possible.
So what
that was a bit of I got a place question, but you're sorry about that. Go ahead.
Go to market strategy. I got you. Effectively, what we started with was the brand, right? We wanted a brand that felt refreshing in the space. It felt a bit counterculture to what people commonly think of when they think of negotiation. We use a lot of lifestyle photography. We do look a lot more feminine than masculine compared to a lot of the other providers in the space. We invested heavily in the look and feel of our brand because we wanted people to feel more positive about negotiation. And it started with, how do they feel when they interact with what we do? So we started with our brand. Not a lot of organizations should start with brand. You should start with the product first, right? And make sure your product market fit. We knew we had product market fit. I knew that if we put together an amazing group of individuals and packaged amazing content, we would deliver an exceptional result. So we knew we had the product. We already had people coming to us even before we were open, saying, hey, we would love to work with you. So we officially opened the doors Jan 1, 2023. And part of that plan was going to be our go-to-market strategy. So what we did from there is, my co-founder is an unbelievable revenue leader, which I'm really fortunate to have. Although we get a lot of word of mouth and referrals, we invest heavily in, of course, SEO. We invest heavily in LinkedIn. We invest heavily in SDRs and outbound strategy, because his philosophy is outbound. No one's ever going to have a strategy that should not have outbound. And you always need people making those phone calls, warming up those connections, dealing cold. So we have tons of different strategies and sequences that we use to acquire business and warm people up. So yeah, all the go-to-market stuff is not rocket science. We use all the common plays that you would use to build a business. Inbound funnel, outbound funnel, and so on.
For sure. No, it's great that you bring that up. And the reason why I'm asking is because out of the 200 something conversations I've had, you would be surprised in the amount of businesses that are 20, 30-year businesses that just rely on word of mouth. And I'm like, sure. I think that's something that's so important for business, and you should leverage that as much as possible and increase that. But if you're not having anything else there, then the business can go under at any minute. Like, it's hard to be able to scale. So it's it's a refreshing thing, a refreshing sound to hear on somebody who also is looking at the other side of the strategy, the inbound, the outbound, the active thought leadership, whatever it might be. So yeah, I wanted to ask that to see if you were going to be part of I want to call it 80% plus, to be quite frank.
No, totally. We do all those things. Thought leadership is something we do all the time. And then we developed heavily and continue to develop our inbound and outbound marketing funnels.
Yeah, awesome. Good stuff. I have a couple final questions here for you, Mark. One is a question that I've been asking everybody on the podcast. So you're going to be a victim of it as well. So we'll start with that. Let's say you had a magic wand and you could just wave this great wand and it would solve one thing in the business. There are often many priorities that we have, but just one challenge, one obstacle, one whatever it might be. And that would allow you to hit your growth goals just like that. what's the one thing you'd like to solve in the company?
It's the thing that we're working on right now, and that's scaling out our B2C play. So opening our business up, we've built an incredibly amazing brand for ourselves in a B2B space, and now we're opening up a B2C side of the business as well. So for waving a magic wand, I would continue to accelerate the growth we have there. If I have a second magic wand, it's time, but that would be a bit of a cheat code because a lot of what we do is sell time.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would be a bit of a cop out. I wish we had more time, but the reality is we're investing a lot in the future growth of our business to really follow through with our mission of negotiation for everybody, everywhere. So we're very excited for the growth of our business in that area.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And the final question that I have here for you, Mark, is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were. So are you ready for the question?
Sure.
Here it is. If you could go back and do it all over again, would you do the exact same thing, or is there anything that you would change?
Exact same thing.
Why?
Because I'm here. And what could be better than here? I know it feels like a bit of a cop-out answer.
No,
Like I would do the exact same thing. I went to school assuming I would go to the business school. I failed calculus because I'm not a numbers guy, so I went to the comms program. It was the absolute 100% right fit for me. Presentation, persuasion, influence, crisis management, crisis communication, conflict management, conflict resolution. Ended up being a perfect fit. Ended up being obsessed with negotiation.
Yeah.
Found a job at another firm. Was paying like the least amount of money from every other job I was looking at, but I took the job anyway. I performed exceptionally well, and then I got knocked down, and then I exceeded expectations, and I got knocked down again, and exceeded expectations, I got knocked down again, and then I didn't like the way I looked in the mirror anymore because I felt the weight of the world on me. So I split off and took a risk, joined another company so I can think about aligned in the background, and then a year after I left, it became a reality, and then I got to surround myself with the best possible talent I could find. Like, who's got it better than that? I think we have a purpose-driven mission, and I love every step of the way I've been able to do it. So, I wouldn't change a thing.
That's amazing. I love that answer because I think people often overlook the challenges and the lessons and the things, whatever it might be, struggles or anything that they go through. And they're like, oh, if only that one thing could have been different. And sure, if only that one thing could have been different, you probably wouldn't be where you are today. Which is always, I'm not sure if it's the wrong perspective to have, but it seems to me that it can sometimes be overlooked, and there's a tune of ungratefulness that comes with it, and not of course in a bad sense, but in the sense of the butterfly effect. As you said, if this didn't happen, then this didn't happen, and it wouldn't lead me to where I am today. So I really, really love your answer. Mark, thank you so much for the conversation. This has been an incredible time. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you, but of course a little bit more about Aligned?
Absolutely. So obviously you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Mirra. You can check out Aligned Negotiation. We are alignednegotiation.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn as well. We're investing heavily in communities. So we're releasing a community which should be coming out in the next couple of months, which is going to be amazing. You could reach out to us for training and development and coaching, or you can, of course, take our video series. So alignednegotiation.com or Aligned Negotiation at LinkedIn. Engage with us. Ask us your questions. Be a little bit vulnerable. I promise we don't bite.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Of course, I'll leave everything down below here. And again, thank you so much for your time, Mark. I really appreciate you. And for everybody else that's watching, I will see you on the next one. Take care.